Back listening to all of this, there's so many answers that we don't have, even if we desperately want them. But your comment so far?
Well, you know, again, we suffer through this intolerable and seemingly inexplicable horror, and our hearts go out to Mr. Rouse and to the victims, and our praise goes to the LAPD. I spoke a little earlier today with John Pasquarella, the sergeant from the LAPD, and he explained the scene to me, and the way that he described it was that at about 10:50, the gunman just walked in and without a word shot to one side, shot to the other side, in a kind of mechanical, methodical, wordless fashion, and then was gone. And while we are speculating, it suggests to me a few possibilities. And one is the possibility that's been raised by you and by Clint, which is the possibility that it's a hate crime. But I agree that it's too soon to conclude that for sure. And two other possibilities that I think are equally strong leap out. One is that this is a kind of signal of some kind of family or domestic problem that was being exercised in this fashion. And we've seen it before. There was some of that even in the Mark Barton case. That was the end of a long series of personal difficulties and failures. And the other and third possibility is that we've got somebody with a very serious mental disorder, schizophrenia or a form of psychosis or a borderline personality disorder, that doesn't justify the actions, but begins to explain how someone could so methodically do something different than what we've seen in the other many, many murders since I've sat here and talked about Paducah, which is an adult man, a 40-year-old man going in and mowing down children, many of whom presumably were strangers. So I think we need to examine all of those three possibilities.
Commissioner Kelly, I think what stands out here is the potential for more violence. You know, if you want to talk about Mark Barton in Atlanta, there was something particular going on there, some psychoses that I don't know that we can explain coherently here tonight, but something was at work that leads him to commit suicide. I think the obvious concern has to be he's on the run now, this suspect is desperate and is heavily armed. I mean, the police are saying he had a 9mm Uzi semi-automatic weapon.
No question about it. There's great potential for increased violence. But again, we're talking about a weapon of war that's on the streets of our country. There's 200 million guns in the United States, and just underscores once again that we have too many guns. We need a lot more reasonable gun control. And Uzi has no place, in my mind, in our society. It was a weapon designed by the Israeli army for war. But again, we see another terrible gun-related tragedy, and I think we have to come to grips with this problem, that we simply have too many guns in our country, and we have a fairly significant psychotic population as well. When you bring them together, right, we're going to have continued violence.
Alan Lipman, I've got a little less than a minute before we have to take another commercial break. Do you believe, and again, we're not trying to draw conclusions, we're just putting some of the facts together here. Do you believe that this is an individual, based on what we know so far, who eventually realizes through radio, television, other outlets, you know what, I'm finally outmanned here, and I have to succumb to the pressure. I can't remain on the run forever here. They got the FBI, they got the LAPD SWAT team, etc. Do I then say, God, I just got to give up?
David, I think right now he's running from himself. And he's actively trying to pretend that he's not going to be caught at the same time that he knows that he's likely to be caught. By the way, you know, I was thinking about the same question that you asked right before you asked it, and it occurred to me that this is a guy who, in the midst of his flight, might even be listening to some of these reports and might even be listening to this. And on the small chance that he is, I hope to God that he will, if he has the clear sight and lack of psychosis, to hear this message, not to turn the gun against himself, but to turn himself in, so that we can begin to understand the roots of this thing and not justify it, but explain it and begin to put it away. So much of it is the guns, and so much of it is understanding. Let's stop.
Let's take a commercial break here. We're going to come back after the break, bring you up to date on all the latest information as this manhunt continues in Los Angeles. Coming up on the height of rush hour, 20 minutes to 5. In Los Angeles, this gunman still at large. The good news tonight is that all of the children who were evacuated from the Jewish Community Center are safe, save those 5 who were injured. One in particular, a 5-year-old young boy who was shot in very critical condition tonight, still in surgery. We wait for a lot of answers, and when we get them, we'll pass them on to you, of course. Special edition of Internet continues right after this.